topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Now here's your host, Emotional Wisdom Training Specialist Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Today's another great day, and with a special guest talking about, I think, a very pertinent topic, always and forever, but we're talking about the fourth trimester. And so this is for all the parents out there and all of the people supporting parents out there, and how we might be able to support each other in this very stressful time of just having a baby and being a new parent, or having multiple kids. And let's dig in. My guest today is a good friend of mine and a colleague and a beautiful mama of 2 children. So let me welcome Dr. Stephanie Yip to our show today. Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining me. I know we always have such great conversations and lots of ideas and just curiosities, and you're so easy to talk to about real life matters. I find you have so much wisdom to share and expertise and experience, and you are doing an amazing job. So
not too much, but
little bit. Yeah. So this is a topic that your specialty lies in, right? Helping moms, and
for sure. Hopefully, as I continue to practice, becomes my expertise, and I can confidently call myself that, because it's just so important.
And what's important about it?
Well, we're talking about the fourth trimester, so postpartum, and I think really it stems from what we've lost in our own culture and what we're cultivating and training our new moms and young women to think that's how they have to be or have to heal, which is bounce back quick, back to life quick. You can do everything. You don't have to be vulnerable. And it's just wrong, and it's leading to chronic illness and breakdown of family and development of child and bond between mommy and baby, and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, so there's so many aspects to that. Like right there, you named, the physical health of mom and baby, and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, just like that now, and Chinese medicine, we're both. Yes, so Stephanie is a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and so we can speak towards that, because that is a traditional culture with some, I don't know if you call it systems or practices in place that help support a woman to get pregnant and be strong enough to bring life in, and then carry it through gestation, and then even postnatal. Yeah, because now you've got like all this, energy consumed in creating life, and then now all this energy consumed in sustaining life. So, there's a lot to unpack there, right?
I mean, one of the things that really jumps out at me is in Chinese medicine and Chinese culture, they consider the fourth trimester the golden month. So you have 3 stages in a woman's life that are considered golden opportunities to get stronger. There's like this window where your So you know how if you're treating a patient, it takes time to get to like a plateau or a peak where you can really invoke change. And it's sort of like building up that chi and blood, tonifying or reducing whatever we have to do, maybe to solve like a chronic illness or something that's really deep-seated. It takes time, right? But that's the beauty of Chinese medicine. It takes time, but it's taking time because you're getting at the root of something. Well, with postpartum, because they consider it golden, because you're already at that peak. You're there already without having to do months and months of treatments. So it's a really good time to, you know, when you're at your weakest or most vulnerable, to build you back up even stronger than you were before you had your baby. And that's why they call it the golden month, because it's like this, literally this golden opportunity in your life to like, you're cleansed. You've just shed chi and blood. And with that, like even old patterns for myself, I used to have debilitating, horrible period cramps. Like in the shower, day one, pop an Advil, Tylenol, like horrible. And after I had my first, I've never experienced period cramps since. That was 6 years ago. Not once, like never any cycle have I had cramps. So it's like really something to think about after having your baby, having this opportunity. If you do it right and you take herbs and you sleep and you rest and you let people take care of you, you can come out of it like stronger than you were before, which is crazy because we think having a baby, you know, everything is sort of shifted and changed. You feel like maybe you weren't as prime as you were before the baby, because it is a toll on your body. But this golden month is like amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we all know about like the mom superpowers, you know, how, you know, moms are kind of amazing. So yeah, maybe that's it. There's like, and I'm interested to know what the other two golden times are.
Menopause and menarche, or like your first, I think your first period. Now I was sort of trying to find more information on that, because I feel like maybe it's each month, the blood cleanse, you have an opportunity at the end of that, maybe like as estrogen is increasing, to like invoke change. Because like really each month we should sort of be taking it easy when we're bleeding, and like reflecting and kind of going within and allowing that purge. It's almost like good training for postpartum. But
yeah,
we don't
and even like you're talking about painful periods, and then you have a baby, and so it's like your body was prepping you for that. So now no more pain because you've already been through.
Maybe. Well, there was just like stagnation in there, right?
Yeah.
That like
Yeah.
after you've shed all that lining and that contractions and those muscles are changed, maybe if there was some sort of stasis or phlegm in there in Chinese medicine, like a lack of smooth blood, it went away. But I had forceps with my son in a major episiotomy, so I'm pretty sure there's some cold stuck in there. My period's not perfect, but it's definitely not painful. So there was a shift.
Yeah, because it clears some blockages, like cleans it all out, and then but depending on how delivery goes, or how your post care goes, you know, you can develop other stuck points. And in Chinese medicine, essentially the basis of all of it is circulation. And if you have pain or illness or, you know, discomfort, disease, that's a blockage somewhere, something obstructed. So
whether it's your blood, for sure.
So that makes sense. That like women are lucky like that every month there's a, you know, who are cycling have a ton to cleanse. But
you have an opportunity.
But we digress. But like the postpartum time, that the golden month. So tell us a little bit more about that. How could someone take advantage of that time? So and when you say they're at their peak, is that like a peak of a like a low point that they can build from, or is that like a peak?
It's like a peak in the ability to shift. It's like your, the clutch is pushed in, and you're able to, if anyone, if you drive stick shift, it's like you're always pressing on the gas, popping the clutch, whatever. Maybe like there's an old illness and you're trying to treat it. This is just normal if you're not pregnant or postpartum. It takes time, right, to get to that chronic or old illness, or it takes time to clean the slate, to press in the clutch, to like have a clean space. Like that takes prep, and with that prep, it takes time. Like even if you just start first working out, you're just getting into that habit. You maybe don't see gains for like 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're hitting these big gains. And you're like, whoa, and it's like the 3rd and 4th month that you're seeing all these shifts in your body. Well, that postpartum stage alone, without doing anything, is that peak, is that time for a shift. You don't have to do any of the prep. Like, you're there. It's a clean slate. And you have the opportunity to either build yourself up anew and stronger, or you do the opposite, which is, I would say, the majority of us, and you end up leaving postpartum with maybe a lot of other issues that you didn't have before, just because the self-care is not there, and we essentially do everything ass backwards. Sorry, can I swear on your show?
Yeah, you're fine. It's PG, but
Okay. No F-bombs.
Yeah. So, but this is like real, there's a lot that goes, so many views, it's a energized topic, something that I think requires like some attention, but
it's just interesting.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, what's interesting?
Just all of the cultures around the world. It seems like our Westernized culture is the one that does it really wrong. That does like quite an injustice for the mom, like physically, emotionally, spiritually. Just from like the research and the reading I've done, we just don't take care of our mothers. They have the baby and we give them so much love and adoration and attention and care, and then they have the baby and that's it. Like a lot of times they have like, maybe if they're lucky, a few days in the hospital, if that's considered lucky, but a few days where family will stick around or a spouse will be home, and then they're trying to figure this out on their own. Like, especially even this past year with the pandemic, I've had 2 patients that told me they've now are suffering with like depression and anxiety because they had their baby and they were just like alone for the full year, isolating. And it's like, it's really damaging. And the ripple effect is so much more than I think we can understand or we can really see right now. Like obviously hindsight's 2020. I think we'll start to like notice. I think we're noticing it now, and just how many people are depressed and how many people have issues with like bonding and lack of community. And I think it all stems from that postpartum period and just moms being on their own and overworked and stressed and underfed and exhausted. And yeah, it's like, it's so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. So in that like peak opportunity time, it's such a vital position to be in to really build the foundation for the next steps. Yeah, I noticed that too. I mean, the West, we're very individual, right? We live in our separate apartments, and we're like, that's part of our culture. But when it comes to raising family or supporting new moms, it doesn't translate as well as that. Like that isolation piece is a bit detrimental. Like I worked in a birthing center in Indonesia, and I heard that with the midwives, and like just the way that they do everything was so like mom and baby. As soon as baby's out, they don't even cut the umbilical cord. They put the the placenta in a bowl of water with flower petals, and then mom and baby are beside each other nonstop. They don't even really leave the bed, right? They just like rest for 3 days or something until, you know, like things naturally progress. And even, you know, breastfeeding where you're, you know, they have, you know, baby to mom all times, like latched in there, feeding whenever baby wants to. And yeah, we just have it a little bit differently where we're more isolated. And yeah, given the pandemic as well, that's like on top of that creates more isolation. And support is huge. I think that's a big difference that I've noticed in the cultures with, yeah, how we take on the responsibilities. And
yeah, huge. And I just think it's this culture of you can do it all. And it's really wonderful because on one end, as females, we do have a lot more opportunity, and we're fighting still for like equality in a lot of areas. But I think with that, we're losing this. I don't know if it's like they think it's a weakness, or with equality means you ignore your biological needs. And that's what's interesting to me, even on social media, like seeing all these influencers who've just had babies, like they're up out of bed and they're like having these cold smoothies, and the babies have all these cute outfits on and are being bottle fed and like away from the mom, and it was like day 2, and like everything that they do is so counterproductive to their health. And I just like watch it like a train wreck, like, oh my god, she's gonna be in like it's just makes my skin crawl. But you can't say anything because then you're mom shaming.
right. But you know, because of your like training and knowledge around how to support someone through you know, traditional Chinese medicine, or even just traditional methods, like what do you see there in that example as something that could be, you know, improved on?
Should be in bed with the baby, minimal activity, minimal for at least the first week. And like nesting, you should be in your nesting period where baby and mommy are just breastfeeding, eating, massage, even in-home care if you can get somebody to come do acupuncture, acupressure, whatever. But massage seems to be, in a lot of the cultures, what they do, whether it's a family member or friend coming to massage the mom. And like, is it like good food, good nourishing, digestible food, warm, just that support. So, and I think that's where we really have lost it, is we don't have the in-laws and the sisters and the moms and grandmas and midwives or neighbor friends who are close to you coming to like cook your food and like rub your feet and make sure you're comfortable and clean your house, take care of the older kids. We don't like have that anymore. And then it's like this race to get back in shape. And what you're doing is like the opposite, because usually you're stressed out and you're eating cold raw foods because that's like a healthy thing to do. And now your hormones are all out of whack and you're not digesting properly, you don't have nutrients, breastfeeding becomes harder. It's just like, it's just a snowball. Everything just is a recipe for disaster and for not like a good healing journey for mom.
Mm-hmm. So even if you have the support, and like, what are some other things that come up with postpartum that can be challenging?
Well, I guess, so in North America, it's something like 50 to 80% have baby blues. So that's right when you deliver and, you know, the human growth hormone goes down significantly, obviously, because you deliver the placenta. You're losing blood volume. Your progesterone and estrogen is high in the placenta, so it also drops. So then that means your serotonin and your dopamine uptake is inhibited, which are like the happy hormones, right? So you see that right away. So there's difficult emotions, anxiety, you know, depression and upset. But you can mitigate all that if you are, again, in your safe space, you're resting, you're with baby, you're being fed, you're being massaged. You don't have to think about, oh, I got to get the kids to school, or the house needs to be clean, that laundry needs to be done. I don't know what I'm doing. There's no mothers mothering me. Like, I'm on my own, Googling like how to get the baby to latch, or what do I do to make it sleep. Which is a lot. Like, a lot of women are just on their own with a brand new baby, like trying to figure it out. And stress obviously puts you in fight or flight. Cortisol goes up. So again, all those hormones, serotonin, dopamine, are even further inhibited. Oxytocin as well, the love drug. That's the hormone that helps us deliver our baby. That starts at 36 weeks, but it's also huge for lactation and for bonding. And there's this professor in Berkeley who is like a neuroscientist, and he said that oxytocin can actually help rewire your brain. So when it's at its highest, it can help change like brain synapses, so you can change old patterns and old behaviors. So again, like that golden month, it's a perfect opportunity to change physical, mental, emotional, everything. But we're so stressed out. It's all just that it's not there. We don't have the support because we're doing too many things.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that it's a good time to, shed everything mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. There's all the levels. Like, I can only imagine, all of the phases, all the things that come up. But it's like a chance for total alignment. And yeah, when I like that, because in emotional wisdom training, it is like neuroplasticity. It's rewiring the brain to find new pathways that are more supportive, beliefs, feelings, thoughts that are more supportive. And in the vulnerable time of after having a baby, you need support. You need to know what you want, and you need to know how to ask for it. And that's a big block onto itself. It's like knowing what you want, right? Because those little conflicts or relationship strains, or you might not even know what you're wanting. You're sitting there Googling, and and that maybe confusion or overwhelm even adds clutter, right?
Totally.
So getting really clear on knowing what you want is
difficult.
It's a big cure. Yeah.
Well, even speaking from my own personal experience, having my first, we were super excited. It was planned. I thought I knew what I want. I had a difficult birth. So that right there can be traumatic, because you have an idea in your head about what you want to happen, what it's going to be like, and a bit of a fantasy, but you do need to be flexible in that, obviously, because anything can happen. So like mine, a lot of things happened. And then coming home and thinking, I just want to be alone with my baby and my husband, that's it. When really I probably needed more of my mom and my sister, my grandma and my mother-in-law, and like people to just come and tell me I was doing okay, and like get all the other things done. But you don't realize, I think, as much as you prep and go to birth classes and do all these things, for me personally, I didn't get any advice to be like, listen, once this baby comes, you're going to be a different person. Like, your brain is going to be different, and it's going to be really challenging. And it's not just going to be, I love my baby, happy, happy, happy. Oh, I feel a bit sad. It's going to be like anxiety, worry. I remember getting Jude home from the hospital, and I had this overwhelming worry of like, oh my God, I'm going to have to keep this thing safe for the rest of my life, and I'm going to worry about him every single day for the rest of my life. And it was so overwhelming, I almost couldn't breathe. And there wasn't anybody there to like rub my back and be like, I mean, my husband was there, but it's different, right? You need females who've had babies to tell you what you're feeling is fine and it's going to pass and you're okay. And you're going to worry about this kid, but you're also going to love it. And you know what I mean? Like just that affirmation from somebody who you know has experienced this. And then what I tell my patients a lot too that I find seems to help is like they can't quite put into words what they're feeling. And I'm like, well, it sounds like grief. And I know that's what I felt because you're grieving who you used to be, because once you give birth, that person is gone. Like obviously you're still yourself, you have your friends, your likes, your dislikes, but you're a different human. Your brain's different, your biology is different, you have your baby's DNA in you, like you're different. And I think that grief and just letting go of who you used to be and embracing who you're now becoming, which is awesome because moms are awesome, it was really hard, and I couldn't quite figure that out or even put it into words, rationalize it until a year or 2 years later. And that was, I think just not being able to figure that out or have somebody to work through that with me led to postpartum depression and like identity stuff and just a disconnect from self. And so again, like that mothering the mother and having somebody with you when you're going through those shifts and your brain is changing, or even having somebody help you previous to giving birth to just prepare you for those difficult emotions, to be like, here's some tools to talk yourself through it, to breathe through it, to journal, to understand what's happening, what hormones are fluctuating, what to focus on, what to let go, like all those things that we don't know what to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it kind of makes me think of it's interesting because you talk about the golden month or those golden times in our life, and sounds very much transitional. Even like menopause or menarche, those are very significant transitions where you are actually a new person. Like you've got this new information or this new experience, and now you have to like integrate it, into something that's moving forward. And so accepting that, but it's the terms like the mother, the maiden, the mother, and the crone, like there's also like the 3 phases. And I mean the value of having perspectives on either end of the spectrum and supporting each other, because it is a big transition, almost like how there's some cultures, I know Native American culture and maybe the Jewish culture too, they have the transition for into adulthood, like a ceremony or a celebration. Right. And but superficially, we celebrate having a baby, right? Like but maybe that's it, is the deeper transformational support that's maybe lacking, and then that creates more isolation, more separation, and then feeling like you're taking all of that on your own. Like
you are. I mean,
it's like I'm this is my problem.
And I think again it's just cultural, and I think the only way to change that is just to have the conversation really available and to not pretend like you're mom shaming or you can do it all, or it's like, everything doesn't work for everybody, or one thing doesn't work for everybody, but that doesn't mean you need to ignore your biology and your health. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're so worried about offending somebody, but to me, I'm okay with offending people to be like, this is going to dictate the health of your future, your longevity, your vitality, your ability to bond properly with your baby, and the development of your child. So we're not just worried about moms, we're worried about who that human's going to grow up to be, and their like attachment issues and their security, and even their ability to like form healthy relationships. It all starts from that postpartum to, age 3, 5, whatever. But it's like, I don't care about offending people when there's so much to lose, and you can see it happening. Like ADD is through the roof, depression is through the roof, chronic illness, like something's broken. And this is a really tangible, easy thing to see that's broken, because in so many other cultures, they're doing it right. They don't have these same problems. People aren't suffering from depression and anxiety when they're 5 years old. Like, it's crazy to me. Like, it's the anxiety, I think, is the biggest one that we're seeing in our culture. Everyone's rampant. And it's just being isolated and not supporting each other, especially in these vulnerable times. Like, you wouldn't expect somebody who came out of a surgery, like post-op patient, to just be cooking their own meals and like mowing the lawn. Like, that's not we take care of them. There's rehabilitation. You're in the hospital, then you go home and you have rehab, and people are checking on you and sympathetic. So you're literally pushing a human out of your vagina. Like, why wouldn't you get the same love and care and support for as long as it's going to take? You grew them for 10 months. Like, wouldn't you give 40 days to like get better? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. And I did it wrong with my first. I totally was guilty of all of these things. But then, with my second, I really made a shift, and it was a completely different experience, completely different recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what would you say is the biggest difference then?
Well, the birth was a big one. I had a home birth. I mean, sometimes it's not possible for everybody, and I get that.
Yeah, you had a really cool birth experience, I think, with your second.
I did. She was awesome.
So it's like everything went right with that one, and versus traumatic.
Well, I think
not going as you want. Yeah.
Support is key. You have to trust and love. Well, trust and really know who's with you when you're giving birth, whether it's your doctor or your midwife or your OB. You got to be on that same page, and there has to be open dialogue about what you want and what you don't want. And when you're going through labor, like we had a doula even, and I still was not completely 100% on my options. And I didn't trust that midwife that I had. So things didn't go the way that maybe they should have in retrospect. And then upon like showing my case with my son to another midwife, and them reviewing everything and then telling me, yeah, this probably shouldn't have went that way. So having that support from the get-go is important. But then, with Maisie, I had a natural birth at home. And then right after we were in bed, like, that's it, skin to skin. And I stayed in bed, and I stayed that way for like a good week and a half. And then I slowly started like moving around and getting up. And I had bone broth, and I had congis, and I had food all prepped for myself. I really didn't hesitate to ask my family to help me, like my mom, and obviously I had an older son then, so like people were there to help me. And I didn't host. Like with Jude, I was like hosting, like 2 days after he was born, cleaning the friggin' house for people to come over and like hold this baby. And meanwhile, I'm like, it was like a horrible 19-hour labor, forceps delivery. Like, I was destroyed, and I'm like hosting. Like, it was, it just like wasn't good. And I just think it's not only as a mom not being able to ask for what I need and what I want and don't want. It's like also the outside thinking, oh, you've had a new baby, let's come over and like hang out. When it should be, I'm going to come cook you food, clean your house, you sleep with the baby. But that's like weird to people. Like, no, we're coming to see your new baby.
Right. And so that's where maybe the biggest difference is in kind of the way we used to do it versus the way we're doing it now.
and the way they still do it in other countries. Yeah. Like, you know,
even like, you know, home birth, but versus like in hospital on the back, you know, pushing on your back, because it's easier for the doctors, you know, like, you know, when that first started coming into play, that was
3 hours to push. Like, what? You're giving me a time frame? Like, get out of here. I know, it's everything about it is, and oxytocin, again, it's only released to its full potential and in abundance when mom is feeling safe and warm and protected. It's the same or similar hormones that are released when you're having sex. So it's like, you're not going to have sex with 6 people in the room on a hard table, like, unless you like that sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe you do. I don't know. No judgment. But it's like, you want a dark room, a quiet space, you know, good vibes, people you trust around you, touching you in your space. And that's the same. So that's like what you want when you're laboring, when you give birth, and after. Like, oxytocin is not just the birth hormone, it's really important for lactation. So a lot of times moms have had a difficult birth, then they're moved around or they're sent home or whatever, and their space is maybe not relaxing. They get home, they've got all their kids, or they have like chores or whatever, or annoying in-laws are coming over to like ask them a million questions and bug them. And so they're not lactating as easy as maybe they should, or as smoothly. And then they're more stressed, and it just, again, snowballs. And it's so sad.
I know. So what would you be able to share with someone who's going through, you know, something similar to what you experienced with your first one, you know, that could maybe make their experience a little bit better? And part 2 of that question, what might people that are supporting these people in their lives be able to do?
Right. I think,
you know, versus just showing up and expecting to see the baby, like you say, you know, cleaning, helping clean, cook, and
right. I think prepping is always important. So knowing what you want and what you don't want, and really discussing that, like, to death with your healthcare provider. If your healthcare provider is not on board, get a new one. Like, find one. And I know it's hard, but I did it with my son, and it still didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it to. But I went from having just this maternity Western doctor who went on vacation like a month before I was due, and it was this new gal, and already she was just recommending things that I wasn't for. And when I verbalized that, she looked at me like I was nuts. So there was like judgment. And anyways, I was lucky that I got a midwife when I was 36 weeks, and they were great, but we weren't aligned. There was a bit of a distrust there. And I don't know if it was complacency or what. But anyways, before you're giving birth, I think educating yourself is huge, and reading and hearing positive birth stories. Like, you don't want to just fixate on all the negative, what could go wrong. You do want to know your options if something comes up. Like with my son, I had to go to the hospital sooner than I wanted because my blood pressure was very high, or my heart rate was very high. So they were a little worried. So like knowing what that means, and then knowing your options around that. And for us, we had a doula because I knew when I was laboring, I probably wasn't going to be in a mind frame to make decisions that I wanted or needed. So our doula was there to help, and she was really awesome. But yeah, knowing what you want, like a really solid birth plan, being flexible in that, and then like verbalizing it. And like I think what a lot of us don't realize is you can say no to anything. It's your body. They'll tell you we need to do this, and you could say no thanks. I would like to try and go, you know, you can be your own advocate. That's okay. Like, you don't, have to do, and I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor, because obviously their goal is to make sure you and baby are safe. But if you're not feeling something, you can say, I don't like this. What are my options? What would happen if I don't get this or if I don't do that? And they should tell you. So that's a big one. And then I think making sure you have your nest ready at home. If you don't have the luxury of like having a good support group, maybe your family doesn't live near you, then the prep is there. Even hiring a cleaner for that month once a week could help. Making sure your older ones are taken care of. And again, I know it's not possible for everybody, but there are a lot of really great programs, at least in our city, that can help you.
Yeah, actually, where are you located?
Calgary.
And Calgary,
Yeah,
Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Yes.
Like postpartum doulas that'll come and help you.
Yeah. And could you just describe what's a doula? What does a doula provide for you?
Like a I'm gonna butcher this. What they do. So a doula is like a support for a birth doula, which is what we had. She helped get to know our birth plan, and she's like an advocate for you and a support. So she was massaging me, making sure Dan was fed and watered and okay, making sure I was comfortable. She knew what I want and didn't want. So when something came up, I could turn to her and she would say, okay, you mentioned in your birth plan that you didn't want this. This is what that means. Maybe you should ask this question. So they can't make any medical decisions for you, but they're definitely like a voice. They do so much. They're like amazing. It's so worth it, especially if you don't have a ton of support. It's like such a worthy investment. And they're always like wonderful women. There's tons. They're awesome.
Right. So yeah, just finding one in your city then. And yeah.
And then just I think really setting the stage. So setting the stage for a really nice labor, and then setting the stage for a really nice recovery. And if you do have family and support and people are telling you, if there's anything you need, let me know, take them up on it. Don't say I'm fine. Like, this is the one time in your life where you can be selfish and you can say, I really need somebody to do the laundry. I really need my kitchen cleaned. I really need some meals made, whatever. I think people offer because they truly do want to help. And if they don't, and they're full of crap, they're just trying to say it, then whatever. But
well, then you'll really find out then if they don't show up. Yeah.
The meal thing, and looking for experts in care in your area. So education is key. So like we were saying, finding people who can help you prepare for the transition. And if you don't have experts, then getting books by like Ina May Gaskire, like the midwife.
Sorry, can you say that again? That's the name of a book?
Ina May, yeah. Like I forget what the book is called, but just positive birth stories. I mean, you could Google it and find 1,000, and just really filling yourself up with beautiful birth stories and birth videos. And it does change and reframe your mindset, because we do so often think it's just screaming and blood and pain, but it's not. It can be an amazing experience, and I think that can help with the postpartum, right, the recovery.
Right. And you know, even in the West, like if we're living in the Western, you know, cultures that have maybe more isolation and not as much support, I like that, like going out and finding your team, because that is still an option. You know, you might not have family close by, but you can bring in those key players, you know, that would be in agreement. But again, it's like I think it's so important to be really clear on what you want. Like you're saying, you almost have to delegate, you know, this whole like yourself plus care of baby plus maintaining the family plus, you know.
And it's a shame that it's like that, because like I said, in other cultures, you wouldn't worry about that. Like the mother, her status is raised in a lot of cultures and honored, like, and there's this community support, and we don't quite have that here. Like I was saying before, you're revered and loved and adored when you're pregnant, and as soon as you have that baby, you're just like chopped liver. Like that's, the baby is the center of attention, which is, it should be both, or at least the mother, should be the one that's sort of put up on a pedestal and cared for and cradled. And again, like in this world we live in, the Western world, if you don't have that, you sort of have to create it for yourself, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, stepping into, and like that should be something that really drives, like if you're bringing life in, you're raising and this child. So like you say, you're worrying about this, I think that's a reality, right? That's a fact. You are going to take care of this child, right? Like that's a responsibility. Right. So really making that easier on yourself.
Imagine you had that big shift of emotion and you had somebody that told you this is going to happen, or you might feel this. Here's a breath work. Here's a mantra. Here's an acupressure point. Here's some moxa or a really nice herbal drink. Here's something, a tincture, tools to get you through that crisis. And here's, a grandma or a sister or a mother-in-law, sister-in-law, best friend to rub your shoulders.
Yeah. So you provide care for people, right? So like you're one of the people that someone can have on their team.
Yeah, pre and postpartum. It's and coming up with the plan, helping you have the foods and the herbs, acupressure points, moxa stick, all the things that that you can do while you're at home and in your, you're staying in, you're lying in that golden month. And then when you're ready to get out of the house, get some acupuncture and take advantage of that golden month.
Right. Yeah. Good. Well, how can people contact you if they want to know more?
I think the best way is Instagram, at the root wellness, at the root_wellness. Or you can just Dr. Stephanie Acupuncture, I think we'll find it as well. I'm always on there, and that's probably the best way to find me.
Yeah, you have great stuff, great stories, great content.
Still a account, but it's coming.
No, that's awesome. You're doing great. I really appreciate you jumping on here with me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, always good to connect and share some TCM vibes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
You're welcome. Good. Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up for that today here. Thanks for joining me on the Language of Healing, and you can tune in next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you then. Bye.
Wow, what a show today, and the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4CY Radio and Talk 4 TV. See you next week.